Yeah.
Hello.
That was much better, in my opinion,
Yeah.
at least.
All right. Guess we just. I mean, we could probably
I-
just jump right into it. No.
I'm ready. Yeah, I got yeah. Okay, wait, there was one thing I was gonna say is maybe for like 2 minutes at the end, we kick everybody out and just say we're gonna do like a just a quick spoiler conversation, just because I want to like say a couple things about Aries and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll make it very obvious though.
All right. I guess like the way I have it bucketed is kind of just like we'll just
Once they
do just like the very quick opening stuff, like the quick aftermath, and then
Yep.
like
Once they get to the diner, split it.
Annabeth talking about the fates, yeah, and then I have the diner itself, and then just the amusement park
Just once
as
they split, we'll just do the couple
yeah.
Grover things and then all the Annabeth and Percy, and then
Do
they
you want
come
to do
back
Grover
together.
first?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. And all right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Bingetown TV and our coverage of Disney Plus's Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This is episode 5. A God buys us a cheeseburger. I have I think, let's say, suspicion that we're both going to agree about how we feel about this episode. We got some new characters, which, if you've been following our coverage, we were excited about Aries specifically. So it was nice to see him on the screen and in what I thought was a very successful showing, I guess you could say. So, yeah, before we get into, I guess, breaking down the episode itself, do you agree with that assessment?
Oh, dude, Edge did it for me. Like he was
Yeah,
great.
he was
Ares
awesome.
was awesome. I have been craving the breaking of the cyclical pattern that we kind of fell into through the first 4 episodes, and it felt like we finally did that here. We didn't have a basic CGI monster that the gang just stumbles into and then Percy ends up killing. Um, I thought this was so much better. Like I had fun the entire episode, a lot more fun to talk about, and they got into like the inner politics a little bit
Yeah.
between the gods, which that's like the bread and butter for fantasy sci-fi TV shows for me. Like if you can nail the world building in that way, and everybody knows the stories about the Greek gods, at least at a surface level, but what little they were giving you here extra on top was really good for me. And I think it's going to play well in the long term because finally, man, we got two of the main gods, right? Hephaestus and Ares in this episode. And that's what I've been looking forward to is seeing how they were going to raise the tension and the stakes and then give us this sibling cousin interplay. I just thought this was the best episode of the season so far, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty happy. Like I went right downstairs. I was like, "Yo, like, dude, Edge killed it. I'm all in
Yeah.
on him as
This
Ares."
for sure the best episode of the season. And you could just feel the weight of things, I think, more. Like you're saying, we've moved on from the monsters, which the monsters aren't necessarily uncool, but the gods themselves are much cooler. I mean, we got
Hmm.
literally almost every name drop you could hope for.
Yep.
Borderline in this episode. I mean, they literally hit, it's got to be 10 to 12 of them. So,
Hera, Aphrodite, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, like they said, everyone, almost all the
yeah,
12 gods. Athena, of
everyone gets
course.
in on
Like,
it.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that was just good. And yeah, getting into like getting back to, I guess, let's say like the overarching plot, the quest. There's a lot more, I think, emotion involved here. The acting I thought was fantastic in this episode. Percy
Hmm.
and Annabeth have their moments. Grover, like I said at the end of last episode when we went over things of like Grover just kind of feels there, but he didn't feel that way this episode. I thought
Hmm.
he was great in this episode as well. So everything hit for me for sure.
Yeah, he showed his experience a little bit, but we'll talk about that. So
Yeah.
that's the initial thoughts. I'm ready to,
Mhm.
without
Yeah.
harping on too many things, ready to go through
So
it if you are.
yeah, just the way we always go through these things, we try to bucket the story as much as possible, so we're not talking too long about individual scenes that happen. So basically, I mean, the first conversation to be had is just kind of this aftermath of last
Hmm.
episode. They're kind of Grover is realizing that the police are really looking at them. It seems like there's been a terrorist attack, obviously, at the St. Louis Arch. And then we have Annabeth is looking at the fates. We see Percy's now out of the river, and they're happy to see him and all that kind of stuff. So they just I guess maybe thoughts on those quick things. There's really not a lot here, but
just I'm upset that they told us that they were the Fates right away because like I clocked it. I'm sure
Yeah.
you might have too. I was just like that would have been a fun thing to. It's this is when it gets back to this is obviously a little bit for younger crowds
Mhm.
where the setups and the payoffs for a lot of things are like almost instant for this show makes for a less entertaining podcast because we could have been having a conversation about the fates but like if that really was the fates what it symbolized but they give us those answers right away. That's fine. That's what this show's going to be. It's fast paced. Like we have a lot to cover, a lot of different Greek things to cover. But the only thing I wanted to bring up, and this is going to be probably the only negative thing I say throughout the episode, is it feels like a complete plot hole that Percy is now healed from the poison, even though where they tried to heal him with water in last episode, but now he's just good. We're just gonna drop that, I guess.
I guess they're trying to make it be that maybe the type of water matters.
Was it the ocean or wasn't it? Wasn't it the Mississippi River?
I guess the river versus maybe like the fountain water that's been treated at the municipal
Weak,
water
whatever.
treatment
That's
authority. I don't know.
not
Yeah.
even a big deal for me because I would have accepted the fountain healing Percy, but the fact that it didn't and they said that and now he's healed without them saying anything, I don't love that. But that's my
Yeah.
only like
Maybe
writing thing
the
I'm gonna take apart.
timing thing too. He wasn't in the fountain crazy long. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't really care that much either. I just thought that was a dumb thing to do, but
Yeah. And this kind of bucket here is extending into them walking. They're realizing that
Mhm.
they really can't take the train, they can't take a bus. We've already talked about the fact they can't take a plane, so they're kind of walking down the road, and Annabeth's acting a little weird to Percy. Percy thinks this. It got a little chuckle out of me where he's like, "Hey, it was a
Yeah.
hug. Like it's okay. Like we're friends. Like don't think too much about it." And she goes, "No, dummy. Like I literally saw the fates. One of them cut a thread. Like one of us is gonna die." And he was like, "Nah, it ain't gonna happen like that." That gets
Walker,
interrupted by the arrival, baby. I'm sorry. I didn't want to
I
steal
was
that.
gonna say just Walker's humor is just like I liked it initially, but it's so growing on me.
Mhm.
His style of like comedy beats and like timing and delivery. I like Walker's like just how he flavors the comedy of this show really well. And I think it's the more I watch him, the more I'm like, yeah, he was a good pick as Percy being a little
Yeah.
jackass, like quick, smart ass stuff. All that's great. But the thing that I wanted to talk about that all we're I guess as Ares is showing up, like they're having this conversation about they're really summing or I guess they're really putting a like Jesus, hold on, let me restart that. They're really just fine tuning the point that Percy is of the old way or of the new ways. Like that's like a huge theme throughout this episode.
Mhm.
And he's in the process of transitioning to being more of a hybrid where he understands the old ways more. And he's talking about that here out loud where he's saying, well, obviously, like we got to figure out who even took the bolt. Like Hades is the number one candidate. And then he looks over, he's like, you guys already thought about all this, right? Like, so
Yeah.
there, this is just showing Percy's evolution into starting to think about the right things without having it to be shown to us all the time. It's a little bit of character growth, like throwing him
Mhm.
into the Greek world. I thought that kind of got shown here a
Yeah, I
bit.
guess little
Yeah,
growth after having like that positive interaction with his dad.
sure. Yeah. And that's what he says. Like,
Mhm.
he says things feel different now, which is cool.
When he made the joke about the hug, it made me laugh. I think more because I was thinking he was gonna like be in a friendly way. How he just had like a positive interaction with his dad, and Annabeth
Hmm.
is fresh off this like really negative interaction with her mom. And like I thought he was gonna address like a jealousy aspect, but then it was the hug thing, and that was like, oh my god, I'm an idiot. That's
He's
funny.
Percy's so dumb, but I love it. But
Yeah.
the more interesting piece of this scene is, of course, when our boy Ares
Ooh.
shows up. And I'm just coining that right now. Can we own that, our boy?
Yeah,
Can we
that's
say
where it
our boy?
works. And we were
For the
literally been
time being.
waiting for him. When
Yeah.
I opened the episode and the thumbnail was him, I was like, yes.
I was just gonna say I knew it was him the second they're like, all right, motorcycles coming up. That's just a perfect way to modernize Ares and make him a
Yeah.
badass because he just shows up and technically this is the first god that Percy has seen. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover have seen on screen. We have seen Hermes for that one split second with the Medusa
Mhm.
thing, but this is Percy's first interaction with a god, and I love how he handles everything. Maybe not in this specific scene, but he's told here, like, yeah, Ares says, as your big cousin, maybe I want to give you guys a hand. So that's like his hint. But the later scenes when he's talking to Ares are fucking, they got me
Yeah, they're
hyped,
good.
like how he treats Ares. But Ares does say that Zeus sent all of his kids to search for the Master Bolt, which is just like cool if you know Greek mythology in any capacity, because pretty much like half of the main gods are
A lot
related
of
to
them.
Zeus in that way. So that's
He
just
was
a
getting
cool thing
busy.
to keep in the back of your head that anytime, yeah, I guess just that all of Zeus's kids, including Ares, who like half of the 12, or is it nine of the 12 Greek gods are all Zeus's kids, and then the other two are just Poseidon and Hades. It's Poseidon, Hades, Zeus, and then all of Zeus's direct kids, right? Kind of forget if that's how it is. Like Hephaestus is definitely Zeus's kid.
Yeah, but what about
Um,
Hera?
Ares. Okay,
I was
Hera's
gonna say,
yeah.
yeah.
When I forget, is Hera?
Is
Are
that a
they're not
sister?
siblings? They might
Is
be
that a
siblings, which is
sister or a
probably
daughter?
another one of Cronus's kids or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But either way, it's just cool to know that there's some big players out there that are also searching for the Master Bolt.
Yeah. So he kind of invites them down the road to the diner. Just like how he says, "Don't dawdle," and then just drives away and makes them hitchhike or walk there. Basically, it just got a little chuckle out of me. But the diner. So the diner part one is like him. We're talking to him and getting his kind of feelings a little bit about the war. He reveals that the bolt really doesn't matter. It seems like at this point, he's just
Mhm.
like Zeus is pretty gung ho on this war, no matter what's going to happen. And then he sends him on this quest to get his shield. And then if they do that, he'll get him to the underworld. This was like the first, I guess, like real acting interaction they have with Edge. He, on the motorcycle, it's a very quick scene. This it felt more like I was really looking out for like how it goes with him, like having the conversation with the kids, and I was just like blown away in the positive sense. I thought this was just a great start.
I think his facial acting is good. He's very like quick to be mad as
Yeah.
hell, like right away, and you can see like
Mhm.
veins in his head, and
The
then he's
timing of
chilling.
things,
Yeah.
it's all works really well.
And his story that he gave, like the 2 second pitch about Kronos,
Mhm.
the god of time, or the Titan of time, who's like the father of Zeus, all that. I know all that stuff, but like I like that they just kind of gave it to you real quick. And then he's like, yeah, like my dad's going into war. He's like, isn't that great? And he's
Yeah, he loves
so
all of it.
excited that there's about to be a war because there hasn't been like a global war that like would please a Greek god in a while. So I
Yeah.
love that. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up was something that we both loved early on, and I think it was episode 2. We found out from Mr. D Dionysius, and yeah, it's like he was saying, or it was about the idea that Dionysius was trying to use demigods to get around the
Mhm.
gods' rules. That's exactly what this is, or that's what it seems like it's re-emphasizing. Ares can't get in to Hephaestus's playground to get his shield back, so he's going to use the demigods to circumnavigate the rules. And I think we both love that plot point, and it's cool that they're just actively using it again like this.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then
Mhm.
on the goofier side, it was a good idea adjustment to make him someone who likes to argue on the internet on Twitter.
Oh, trolling, yeah, like
That
that
was
was
good.
awesome.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it feels very Ares of warlike like him. And then we do find out that the FBI is actually after Percy specifically. We see Wade
Hmm.
on the news in his very sorry
Zach
state.
Wilson's number 1
Yeah,
fan.
so that's just something that's kind of happening in the background. So
Hmm.
at this point, they're kind of desperate enough where they have to take on Ares' quest and need his help essentially. So we'll take the amusement park as its own thing, and that'll be second. So we're gonna stick in the diner and what I guess would be diner part two, which is Grover and Ares. And I loved these scenes. Just looking it up on the internet afterwards, because like I said, or we've said before, that our recall of everything that happens is obviously diminished since we've read the books when we were teenagers, I guess.
For sure.
I assume we were teenagers, had to be. So this seems like it was a big change, especially Grover's character, the way like you were saying earlier about like the experience and all that kind of stuff. But I thought
Hmm.
it was fucking fantastic. It just shows Grover is like an actual part of the team. He's like more than just this kind of bumbling sidekick, I guess you could say. And I had been calling out for character development for him, and it feels like we really got it this episode.
And just speaking on more clout for his name or his resume of things he's done, he was invited to the Mount Olympus event that happens every year where he initially met Ares. So that's just cool. He's very like thrown in there with all the gods. Like he seems like he's met a bunch of them, which is cool. He's only 24, which is even in the Greek universe is pretty young. So and I just like his confidence, like how he was trying to socially manipulate Ares into getting some answers too, which was
Yeah.
awesome. Just the way I thought that was the actor's best scene of the show
Yeah, for
is
sure.
that
Going after
conversation. Yeah.
the deep cuts, Aries deep cuts, which
Yeah.
actually makes him like impressed because at first he's like satyr, like you're a satyr, like you obviously hate me, like you eat tofu and worship flowers, you want nothing to do with me. But he was like starts bringing up the Turbo War and the Lobster War and the 335 Years War. So that was just it just worked so well, and he's really it's kind of almost like a boxing match where he's like kind of softening Aries up, and then he kind of comes in with the hook, which is like talking about the bolt at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the bait he uses essentially is him saying that Athena has obviously just been makes things complicated so that she comes off as smart and Aries is
Mm-hmm.
dumb, and Aries that pause, and then he bangs the table and was like, "Thank you," like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again, all of that acting worked so well for me. And so yeah, Grover's just kind of getting all of this information out of Aries in a very, I guess I don't want to say silent way, a very casual way, which I thought was
So
very impressive.
let me ask you then. This is a little bit skipping ahead to the end, but you mentioned it. Like the whole idea and plan was to see if he can glean any bit of information about who the real Master Bolt,
Mm,
who the Lightning Thief is. Because that's what they were talking about in the beginning of the episode. They set it up for this whole purpose.
yeah.
Who are we supposed to walk away thinking that Grover figured it out was? Was it supposed to be like one of Ares' sons? Or like Athena? Like what were we supposed to take that Grover clicked? Because I have too many spoiler things in my head I'm like
Yeah.
conflating the idea of am I reading into that because that I already know where the path is, or was there actually something in that dialogue? Like, because all I can take from it is it's somebody, one of Ares' kids, or Athena is the only thing that I am guessing
Yeah.
that Grover's thinking.
It feels like the obvious answer after the interaction is like Grover thinks it's Athena, but that seems too wrong to be right type of deal. I don't think that Grover actually thinks that. So, yeah, it almost feels like that it's maybe like Ares, where Grover's like, "Oh, you caught the lightning thief,"
Mm-hmm.
trying to get him to like react. Obviously, he's trying to get him to react to that thought and those words, but actually trying to see reading it in a way where Grover has the assumption that it's Ares. Because if
Sure.
Ares, like, if it is Ares, Ares is the lightning thief, and Grover is saying, like, hey, I know you know who the lightning thief is, type of deal.
Right.
I don't know what they want us to think. Obviously, we know what happens and what the truth is. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see. Obviously, that was the big cliffhanger at the end of the episode, is Grover saying he knows who stole the Master Bolt. So I don't know who they think we should be thinking.
And that's more
And I'm
interesting.
not thinking them obviously, like you said, because I know.
Yeah, but I'm okay with it playing out like that because I didn't know if it was just obvious to the average audience
Yeah,
member. I wanted you to check me there, but it seems like we're both on the same page that it's not very obvious of
yeah.
what Grover's conclusion was, which is probably going to be the first conversation we get in the next
Mhm.
episode.
I
Yeah.
mean, do you think he's right? I don't think he's going to be right.
No, absolutely not. But
Yeah, okay,
whatever information he got though is going to somehow have a payoff. Otherwise, it's just bad storytelling. Like it's going to
that's
lead them
true.
to doing something or having a conversation with somebody that's going to, domino effect type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And they just kind of the Ares does have this acknowledgement that he knows that Percy didn't take the bolt, and Grover says the thing that I believe they mentioned earlier, maybe episode 2, about the quest itself, and that it really doesn't matter because Zeus thinks he did, and that's like the actual
Right.
thing that matters. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Uh,
know. I guess I'm trying to think of like Grover's obviously using that I think as the crux of like
mhm.
Zeus thinks he does, and that's what matters. So who would want to manipulate Zeus into thinking that? So
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
And I did say that maybe he's thinking Aries kids, but that doesn't really make sense too, because he said, like Aries says in this conversation, I hate kids, especially my
Mm,
kids.
yeah,
So, which is a cool wrinkle because, like, of course, the God of War would just not want to be a father. Like, why the fuck would
yeah,
he want that? So,
yeah.
all of that
Look what
seems
I
to
did.
check. I feel like the Aries modernized characterization by Edge is just a complete success. And like this Grover conversation, it just played into what I wanted for the
Yeah.
character.
Oh, for sure. I'm so blown away at how successful this was.
And did you know that he's only, I mean, unless I'm wrong and I didn't read far enough into his IMDb, besides obviously wrestling, he's only been in Vikings besides this. This
I
is
think
like
I
his
looked into
second.
it like when he was announced because I was curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember if he
So
was in any other
no,
things?
no.
So I
I literally
couldn't,
remember
everything is
Vikings
like,
and being like, and then that was it.
yeah. It's WWE, WWF, like all the
Yeah.
iterations that he like
That's
lived
funny.
through. It's just everything is like wrestling and
Yeah. He's good.
and if you Google Edge, just I love looking at like the first image of him just a little bit younger, just
Yeah. I used
roided,
to
like
hate
insane.
him. used to
Of course,
hate
yeah,
him
yeah,
back
yeah.
in the
Of
day.
course.
Yeah, but now I
He's an
love him.
entertainer, baby. He's
Yeah, that's
freaking
true.
great, man.
That's true. That's true. All right. So, speaking about entertaining, I guess we can transition into the amusement park. So, this is Hephaestus's amusement park that Annabeth and Percy are going to go to. And yeah, I don't know. I guess we could talk. I mean, it's there's not much happens before the Ride of Love, but essentially we just kind of learn some small things. Annabeth's never seen a movie. And Percy's like, what? That's like,
Hmm.
that'll come back
Little
around, I'm
things.
sure. Yeah, Annabeth, going off this personality of a child of Athena, is very impressed by the amusement park itself. And then we find out here through Percy and her talking that Ares was with Aphrodite in the park,
Hmm.
and that's why he had to leave his shield behind. So that's why it's still there. And then, like you mentioned, he's sending the demigods to go get it because he can't go get back and get it himself. The only other, I guess the trap itself. I don't know if you remember what it was like in the books or not. I don't know.
Well, what I was gonna say is that I just think that. Well, first of all, let me ask you this before I just comment on that. When you think of Hephaestus, in your mind, what is he the god of? Like, what's the first thing you think of?
I was thinking, yeah, like fire in the forge.
That's like blacksmith, fire forge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's
Yeah.
just interesting to me that they call him the god of craftsmen as like his number one title. I've never heard that. Like, I mean, I guess it obviously makes sense. It's like a synonym for blacksmith, but it's always like the forge, which is
Mm-hmm.
just interesting. And how they like built this up, this little drama story. It's funny to me that Aphrodite is just her being hot is just always like a problem for everybody. Like, wasn't Aphrodite directly involved with
Yeah.
the Medusa
Yeah.
backstory? And now it's like very intricate. It's very important for this whole throne and like everything. So I just think it's funny that her just being like the hottest god ever is just such an issue for all the other gods. Um,
I mean, it's
but yeah,
realistic. I'm sure it would be a fucking problem.
yeah. I do think we're gonna meet her this season.
Um, I'm gonna say no. I would like
Yeah,
to.
save
Maybe.
maybe save her for next season if she doesn't have a good plot point. Because I think she was not in the first movie, right? Because Persephone was down the road with Hades. Maybe we'll meet her, but we might be done meeting gods until the very end, maybe like the last two episodes. But either way, I liked Hephaestus too, and I think like this is a cool idea to make his home base, like this Waterland park that he just built everything.
Mhm.
Um, it was just a cool spin on just like how you would come across the god of craftsmanship.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The Ride of Love itself is a very popular book scene. I think based off the fact that people love to ship Percy and Annabeth together, and this is
Hmm.
kind of like, I don't want to say necessarily the start, but kind of the start. And then I thought this episode did a great job as we get through the Ride of Love, and they're talking about Hephaestus' story, and then Percy gets them out of the water after they have to jump out, and they have this argument over who's going to sacrifice to sit in the
Hmm.
chair. And I thought the emotional kind of weight of what was happening and the development of their relationship was perfect. I thought that I felt it for sure. I thought the acting was fantastic. Annabeth feels more like a person now than like kind of a warrior, like a one track minded,
Instead
like
of being closed
perfect,
off and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
perfect person. So I thought everything that they did here worked for me.
I mean, this was the most like obvious example of growth for her. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially when she's talking to Hephaestus and she actually changes his mind. Like one of these Greek gods that are just known for being stubborn. She changed his mind through her growth that was caused by Percy. And I'm bringing that up now because in this Ride of Love, they talk about Percy's mom for a second, and Percy's like, she kind of messed me up. She didn't let me like involve myself in the Greek. She was trying to keep me away, but then you kind of find out that Annabeth sees it as a strength. Like she was trying to make sure that he didn't just fall into the old ways. And I brought it up already. That's a major theme. And his new age mindset is really what's driving Percy and making him so unique and important and like why this is all going to work out for him and like why he's such an important quester right now in this story. So it's just cool that all these like moving plot points are really coming together to just show why Percy's special rather than him just being the natural chosen one that everything works out for. Like there's reasons the mom's raising of him is like part of
Yeah,
it
yeah, a
and
huge
just
part.
his attitude, like all of that is really coming into play here. It's subtle and it's not they don't like harp on it, which I actually appreciate because it kind of lends itself to rewatches and just not just in your face like, oh, like Percy's like this because of this. It's I think it was just good writing, and like this whole scene really worked well for the series.
What did you think of Hephaestus?
I wish we got more, to be honest. And I will say that I
Yeah,
think he got convinced a little bit too easy to just
yeah,
kind of release his trap that they just spent a couple minutes building up as like this epic item that you can't get out of once you decide that you're going to be in. I went back and forth because I also said, well, like this is the power of Annabeth growing, and like Percy's influence on this world is really showing. It was a
hmm
little too easy, but is that the 40-minute episode problem? Like if everything was an
yeah,
hour, man, I feel like so many things would be better about this show. If this every single episode was an hour, like every other streaming site does for any show nowadays, if you're going to do 8 episodes. And that's I'm kind of over complaining about that and just accepting it, but that a lot of issues stem from the short screen time.
yeah. That was the one I would say nitpick I had of this episode is that it felt like he showed
Well,
up and he was like, "Nah," and then she says the stat. She, I mean, granted, she does like the whole eat or be eaten, and Percy's better than that. He doesn't think that way, and like that's why she wants to help him and save him, and he shouldn't just be sacrificed to this chair.
mhm.
And I get that, yeah, like her words would move him, and then he's like, not all of us enjoy being this way or whatever. I, I don't
I
know.
thought
It's
that
just
helped
tough.
a little bit though, because it really showed that Hephaestus hates the old ways as well. Like that was the
Yeah.
only, if he didn't already have that in his head, like this almost felt like what is it called? The straw that broke the camel's back, whatever. Like the
Yeah.
last thing that he needed to actually, like he was never going to move against the gods in the old ways, but like this easy, very doable change like presents itself to him right there, and he just leans into it because he
Yeah.
wants to see the change. And like this, that
I think,
mindset could start spreading to other gods, which would be cool. But I agree, like
yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
it's just the tough part of thinking the fact that he's been alive for untold amount of time.
Hmm.
And again, they talked about it earlier, the whole concept of fate and that kind of stuff. And obviously it's a story. So we have a protagonist and things go on, and there's obviously a
Yeah.
level of plot armor involved that just, yeah, was kind of like
No, I'm
in
not going to
this
defend it. I'm
moment.
not talking you off the
Yeah.
ledge if that's what you're
Oh
looking
no,
for.
and it was just a small little nitpick. It just felt like, oh, okay, we're doing this, but also we kind of got to move on. So it is what it is. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
literally the only small complaint I had here.
Well, mine was what was mine earlier was it was the him healing
Giving her,
himself from the poison
okay,
without,
yeah.
yeah. But
Well, also, I mean, you were talked about it last episode where you're gonna be pissed if he gave her Riptide. Well, he gives her Riptide.
if he gives her Riptide,
He gives her the
the
pen.
pen, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
he
Yeah.
gave it over this episode, and he
True. I
accepted it.
was I was actually upset about
Yeah,
that, and I actually had the thought again, but I was like, hey, I knew this wasn't gonna be
yeah,
longer
yeah,
than a second, so I didn't even like clock it because my first thought was like, she's not even gonna ask how to use it, whatever,
yeah,
but whatever.
yeah. It
um,
doesn't at this point. It doesn't matter.
The other thing I was just gonna say, because there were no monsters in this episode, I'm gonna keep saying it every episode. They needed to find a way to make their cool ass CGI appearance, and it was the throne, like the
Yeah,
gold and going over Percy looked amazing again.
yeah. It looked
So
really
they
cool.
didn't have a use of all their money to spend on a monster, so they needed to do it somewhere. And I thought that looked sick, even though it got reversed in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But I
There.
will say, I'm sorry, last point. I
You're
will
good.
say I would have been way madder if Annabeth within 3 seconds of looking at those gears fixed it and reversed it. I was thinking that's where
Yeah.
they were going, and I was ready to be pissed, but I prefer the cheap Hephaestus path than the cheap
Yeah.
Annabeth figures this shit out in 2 seconds when they just said like gods can't even figure out how to undo this. So
Yeah, for sure. Like, and like you're saying, if there was some more time, maybe like a different trial she could have went through
mhm.
to warm Hephaestus up a little bit, but it's neither
It
here
would
nor
have been
there.
nicer. That extra
Yeah, it
20
happened.
minutes could have been spent on that and it would have been great.
It happened the way it happened. It's all good. Just another one thing I want to call out is she makes, or I'm sorry, that he reveals to her why he picked her. We know this because he says it
Mhm.
to us in episode 2, but he kind of just tells her, like, I thought you would be someone who wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice me, showing the development of their relationship up to this point where she's obviously very upset that he is trying to sacrifice himself. And they have that nice little moment where he's like, kind of has like he's either a request or he kind of is about to make a promise. And she goes like she cuts him off basically. He's like, obviously I'll save your mom. And he goes, well, that's nice, but I was gonna ask you to swing back around. And that was just a nice little moment again, showing the development of their friendship and kind of the deepening of their bond together. It just all of it worked for me.
Yeah, no notes. It was just everything besides what we already talked about. It was all good.
Yeah.
And then it really plays well into the cool shield falling. Ares shield falls, they grab it, and then this is when our three characters converge again at the diner. Are we ready to move on? I
Mhm.
can just keep
Yes,
going.
sir.
So yeah, so sprinkled throughout all this, of course, is the Grover and Ares conversations, but so it's not as abrupt. But once they do get the shield and escape, they show back up at the diner, and then they just drop it right on the table. Ares a little hype, and
Yeah.
then what is Percy? Did you write the quote down? He's like, "So where's our ride?" or something like
Yeah,
that. Whatever
is
it
something like
was.
that. Yeah.
Naturally they just the next scene he follows up because God's usually, they make these deals and quests. They usually follow through at least surface. Like they might have other reasons why they're doing it in their head, but whatever. He does agree to start to help them get across the country to LA. But what he says is this, this truck that you're going to jump in, it's going to take you to a Lotus Hotel in Vegas where you're going to find Hermes. And if you can talk to Hermes and actually convince him to help you, you'll be in LA in a minute, which is cool because yeah,
Yeah. His
obviously
personal
he's the
driver.
speed god. Yeah, so that's a great idea. And this is where I'll just for a second remember, like when I think of the first movie, the Percy Jackson movie, I always think about the Lotus Hotel and like
Yeah.
them in there. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a
About
big
how they're gonna
moment.
treat this. It's gonna be, yeah, like with the I don't want to, no spoilers because obviously we don't do that here. But if they do it even a little bit like the movie, from what I remember, I don't remember how different it is from the books, but I just remember that being a really cool concept in this world. So
Yeah. I have confidence, especially after this episode. I think I have confidence.
yeah, yeah, of course. And then we're promised that Hermes might be there. So anytime we're gonna get a Greek god, I'm gonna be a little happy. So
Yeah,
hopefully that
shit's
comes
probably
through.
gonna happen for sure. Yeah. So Ares does give them some supplies here. He gives them some clothes, some money, throws a backpack at Percy. He says
Mhm.
something else that I didn't write down. I forget. Felt important, but I literally forgot to write it down. So that is what it is. But he's still being like this. I don't want to say cheeky, but he's just doesn't really believe in them. He's kind of like, this is the favor because you did the favor for me, but like
Mhm.
get in the truck and fuck off, basically. Like it's not going to work out no matter what. Percy obviously does not take very kindly to that. I just love this confrontation. It's just
Yep.
very good characterization of how we know Percy. You think you know who I am, but you don't. And if you aren't careful, you'll find out. I was like, damn,
Mm.
bro. That's a fucking hard line to say to the God of War. So Percy's just that guy.
I love it. I thought that was awesome and badass. And just from thinking about it from Ares' perspective, anytime one of the big three gods kid is there, even if it's the beginning of their journey of life, you
Mhm.
gotta in the back of your head think there's a chance that this is gonna be a world changer,
Yeah.
right? Like, cause every time it's always Zeus's kid, it's always Poseidon's kid. It's never really Hades' kid, but either way, like these are the most powerful demigods of all time. So I think he clocked it a little bit and kind of
He liked
respected
it.
his aggression, just like he respected Grover breaking the mold of what he thought and was like kind of faking being all into the wars and stuff.
Mhm.
So all in all, it was just a great episode. I walked away smiling. I thought like, damn, I can't wait till I see Edge again. It's great.
Yeah, we left last episode. I don't want to say the direct opposite of this feeling, but we
Hmm.
were concerns were building.
Yes,
And I
for
think
sure.
this rectified most of the things that I was worried about. We broke the that structure that you
Yep.
mentioned earlier in this episode, and we've talked about. We've gotten, I mean, just the involvement of more gods, like we've said, was a very positive development. The personal development between Percy and Annabeth hit it out of the park, in my opinion. The individual development of Grover was
Hmm.
really good for me. So we're just right back in the right direction. I thought it was great. I'm really excited.
And I'm thinking we're just getting next episode's Vegas, then potentially LA, and then the finale. So like I
Yeah.
feel like that's gonna be, I said it last episode that we're about to start sprinting to the end, but this was really us getting ready to start sprinting, and I'm happier than ever that it wasn't the sprint because this, like I've said, this is my favorite episode of the season. So,
Mhm.
like us gearing up for these last three episodes, I think I'm like so excited. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I feel way better than I did, like you said, coming out of episode 4.
Yeah, for sure. And Tuesdays, 9 p.m.
Yeah, I
Feels
commented in the
like it.
Discord. I was pissed. I was like,
Odd
dude, I
time.
went to watch it at like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. because I just finished work.
Kelly did
I
the
was like,
same thing. She texted
yeah.
me and was like, "Where the hell is this Percy Jackson episode?" And I was like, "Dude,
Yeah.
Tuesdays at 9 p.m."
I looked up instantly. I was like, are they doing one of those breaks? Like, what are we doing here? I was really upset about it, but
That would have been
whatever.
terrible.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned, you just mentioned, but to do the spoiler stuff, do we want to do a little sectioned off warning?
Yeah, so we're gonna kick everybody out and tell you to stop listening to the podcast if you have no intention of hearing potential spoilers. And remember that our book knowledge is so old that we probably misremember a lot. We're also
Mhm.
probably going to be conflating it with some movie things here. But if you don't want us guessing, and we don't know how much they're going to take from the books and spin their own stuff, we're going to start guessing some of the ending things here that we got from this episode. So if you don't want to hear any of that, this is your last warning because in like 5 seconds, we're just going to openly talk about what we remember, just super quick, nothing like deep, but a couple comments that I wanted to throw out there. So this is your last warning.
Yeah.
This is your actual last warning. I'm about to start talking.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So now that we're in full spoiler talk, like Ares is going to be the big bad guy of this season. Like that's going to be, I'm pretty sure the ending, at least what I remember from the books, is like Percy ends up literally fighting sword to
Yeah.
sword on like a beach against Ares at the end of the book.
And they showed some of that in the trailer, which always ends up being an
I
interesting
hate that they do that, but I
thing.
think I saw that too. I tried to block
Yeah.
it out, but because in the movie it's Hades, they just leaned into the trope that Hades is like the bad guy behind the lightning thief. In this,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Ares. So now that we can talk about spoilers, is
Yeah.
Grover's not out here sussing it to be Ares? I mean, I was trying to avoid saying that so specifically when we were talking about it, but is that what you were really trying to dance around? That you think Grover's going to say it's Ares?
I think that's what he's gonna say, and but because I think it's they're gonna present it to us. I think him being like half right about that is gonna make the ending like more shocking when it's Luke.
But either so, I can't specifically remember. Is Luke in the books like put onto this path by Ares? Like, is that the
I
whole idea? And
I
Ares
think
is like
it's
all about the idea of having this war between the gods happen, which is why he wanted the lightning thief to have the master bolt and cause Zeus
I
to.
yeah I think Ares is second in the equation. It's
What do you
not
mean?
Ares influencing Luke; it's Luke influencing Ares
Okay, yes, that
because
makes
it's
sense because of
because
how the whole rest of the
it's
books play out.
Kronos kind of and Luke.
Yes, 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 which
Yeah,
is
and are
fucking epic. Just say it like
taking
that.
advantage of Ares in a way where it's like, obviously this is right up your alley, pal. Like,
Yes,
because
yes,
like he
yes,
has
yes,
the
yes.
conversation when he's saying like Zeus is pretty much gung ho. This is going to be a war no matter what, and like isn't that like he's happy and giddy talking about that.
So he's being
So
manipulated, right? That is totally
yeah,
what it is
he's
because
being manipulated, but also he's, I mean, he's into
he's
it.
into it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Like
So
I
Luke,
think he's fine. I mean, obviously, a level of ego involved in being manipulated, but it's not like it's something he wouldn't want to do. He just didn't know it was a plan.
right, right.
Now he's in on it.
And do you think is the Luke reveal doesn't happen until after the Percy Ares fight, probably, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
that
got
like
to
the
be like the
last thing that
last thing.
happens?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
has to be.
because dude,
It's gonna be
I
great. I
miss
think it's
Luke.
gonna go
Like,
well.
I think Luke's great, and I don't know if you've been seeing any of like the media things that he's been doing, like quick little
Yeah.
interviews. But one thing he was doing, which is amazing, like the fandom that knows or read the books, like loves it, is he like did this interview recently. I think it was even before like it might have been before the season was even shot, but it was people know him, so like it kind of circulated a little bit after the first two episodes. He was saying like, oh, like me and Percy, me and Walker, like we have such a in real life like brother relationship, and it shows in the show. Like I really hope that our relationship gets to keep growing and the fandom loves us. And all the comments are like, this motherfucker is just
That's
trying to
good.
sell it, and it's just
Yeah,
so good because
that
his
is good.
twist is going to be crazy. I can't wait because Luke was
Yeah.
so great in his first two episodes.
And this will be the final spoiler comment that I have. And it's, I guess it's a spoiler inspired guess
Mhm.
that we were talking about, like, who is this voice going to be
Yeah.
in Percy's dreams? That I think it's 100% Kronos.
Wow, that makes so much sense because what was keeping me hung up on it was two things. I was thinking that somehow Luke was using a magical item to fuck with Percy and like manipulate him in that way, which didn't I even said it on the podcast. I was like, how does that make how would he even do that?
Yeah.
And then the thing that was keeping me from thinking it was obviously Ares or something like that was how the voice was talking about gods. So
Hmm.
that makes so much sense because Cronus is a Titan. Now that
Yeah.
that totally is the answer. It's Cronus, but we might
Yeah.
not get that reveal until season 3 or whatever it is. Like
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
two, it could be the end of the season. I don't know how much they want
Yeah.
to fast
Yeah.
track that
Yeah.
stuff,
Guys,
but
it's going to depend on how much time they spend on that kind of stuff in the finale.
yeah.
Because again, like the finale is going to be, I'm assuming, especially because they're not long. Like I think the Ares stuff's going to eat up a lot of the finale, and the Luke thing will be like the last punch in the face before the season ends.
So do you think we get Zeus and Poseidon? We have to get them by the end of the season, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Like they need to, and they don't make an appearance until after the Master Bolt gets solved, which is definitely going to be like the end of
Yeah,
the.
maybe that's like a post credit.
Well, maybe
I don't
The
know.
Hades stuff gets cut short because the next episode's clearly going to be Vegas. Like that is a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
We'll
know.
just see. Yeah.
But here, let me actually look at it right here. I just had it up.
What is it that you're looking at?
Um, then I think they have the names of the episodes.
Okay.
So let me see right here. I got it. So episode 6 is we take a zebra to Vegas. Episode 7 is we find out the truth, sort of. So seven's description is about the underworld, and then
Yeah.
episode 8 is the prophecy comes true. It says Percy faces his greatest battle yet. So that is totally going to be. I think they're doing Ares and Luke in one episode, and it's going to be the
Yeah, because
finale.
the the feels like the title is about the Luke part, and then the description is about the Ares part.
Yeah. Either way, dude, I think this is
Yeah.
the best I felt so far. So I'm
Yeah.
hyped. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
for sure. I haven't felt, I would say, this good since like maybe after like the first two episodes.
yeah. All right, take us
Feeling
home.
confident. Yeah. All right. So if you stuck around for the spoiler talk, thank you. I guess. I don't know.
Hit us
What's
about
it?
Discord, dude. We've been talking on there, so
True. Yeah, that's actually a great plug for the Discord. The conversation there can veer into as much spoilers as we really want to. Obviously, we've been trying to keep the general podcast itself as spoiler free as possible because we want to appeal to both groups. And yeah, other ways to support us beyond Discord is just going to be subscribing whenever you're listening or watching on. And if you're watching, throwing us a like on the YouTube video if you do actually like the video is always a good thing. And yeah, the best way to find out more about Bingetown TV, because Bingetown TV is more than just Percy Jackson, is just going to be going to bingetowntv.com. That's just the easiest way to find all of our episodes in alphabetical organized order. We're wrapping up, or we just wrapped up rather, Jujutsu Kaisen, Yu Yu Hakusho. We're on an anime kick right now because we're starting to cover Solo Leveling as well. And then other than that, we're doing Reacher, which is on Amazon Prime. True Detective comes out on
mhm.
HBO at some point soon, so we'll be covering True Detective. And Murder at the End of the World on Hulu just ended recently. We covered that as well. And we'll have more things coming down the pike. So Binge on TV has been getting after it for almost 4 years at this point, nonstop, consistently. I don't think we've ever taken an actual break, from doing the podcast because there's like 7, 8, 9 of us. So lots of voices to hear, lots of TV shows to cover. So if you like
Mhm.
us, stick around and explore more of us. So for the 5th time this season, we are Bingetown TV. And thank you for listening.
Bang. Fucking
Cool.
efficient. I
Yeah.
think we're masters of the Percy Jackson podcast timing now.
Yeah,
I
we were
think we're
just in
good
and
at
out.
that
It's good.
shit. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, I got that one. I'm actually off tomorrow. Because I
Oh,
worked this
cool.
whole week and I'm cashing one of my fucking days in. I was like, I
Good for
cannot
you.
work fucking like I guess tomorrow would have been 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 11 days in a row. I was like, I need
Jesus.
a
Yeah, I'd
fucking
rather die.
break.
All right.
All
Yeah,
right,
just
see
let
you
me know about the
tomorrow for
video.
volleyball.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, bro. Talk to you.
Adios.